We got some client setup to go over and some UI handling to go over. Um, I've turned this tutorial place into a game, so uh, you can either ignore some of the code that I have, or I might have to explain some of it as I run through, some of these concepts. This series is really more fundamental game design theory rather than I don't know, concentrated concepts, I guess you could call that. So, we have a server module script communication system, you know, on the server scripts inside of server script service. And basically, you want that on the client too, but with a local script instead. So I have it inside of the starter player scripts inside of starter player. I have a local script called client handler, and then I have my client module script. And you can see I have this starter GUI and this other module script inside of it. And this is the same structure as the server pretty much with a few little tweaks. I'll just show you this client handler. I'll get to this load GUI here in a second. But yeah, here's uh, our assemble method going here. I'll just look through this. So for remote events, I usually have a folder inside of replicated storage, called events. And then in the assemble method, I have this loop going through that folder, and then I put it inside of the client.events table that I have defined here. And what this load GUI does is I talked about this in another video. It eliminates the need to use wait for child on GUIs, like waiting for them to load and to reference them. It's a lot cleaner. I'm sure you guys have done it, and I'll show you what the clean looks like. This line's 4 to 13. This is what it looks like. Look how much cleaner that looks. And really, all I did was I took a folder, I named it starter GUI, put it inside of the client module script. Then I made this method here that goes through that folder, and it clones everything inside of it and just parents it to the local player's player GUI. And so if you have a bunch of module scripts, you can just require the client, and you have their player GUI right there. You don't need any wait for childs. You can just, go ahead and reference them. Now on the downside, this adds a step unless you want to make a plugin for it, which is completely out of the range of this series right now. What I do is if I'm working on designing the UI, I will drag it into the actual starter GUI. However, whenever I go and run the game, you have to put it back into the starter GUI or else it'll error. It'll say that it can't find, the screen GUI. If you referenced it somewhere, it won't be able to find it. I'll just do a little test right here. You just watch this error box really quick. And yeah, see, there's our error. It's yelling at us. And then I'll drag it back into my custom starter GUI. And then it should load. Okay. And yeah, we got that. So yeah, so I haven't really implemented it too much in this game. I do have a little bit of an implementation of it, but you can't send metatables over remote events. And that applies to us because I'm using metatables to make save data. And when I want to update UI, I want to just have that save data table right there so that I can update the UI, with their inventory and their stats, and makes it a lot easier. I'm going to focus on this method right here. I just call it raw data because we're sort of making a table out of a metatable. And it has two arguments, the data type and data. Let me go ahead and find where I actually used it, if I even used it anywhere. All right, yeah, here's this. So, yeah, this is for saving the text that they had from the previous session. So right, you have your save data, and what I do is I send the table to the client through a remote event. Whenever you update it, this just has to be user defined. Whenever you want to update the UI, whenever their data updates, you can just fire that remote event with their data and whatever else you need, and then you can update it on the client. And this raw data method really makes this possible. So what I do is I take the prototype or the reference table, whatever you have, that is inside, of the save data definition, and then I have an instance of the player save data as the second argument. And then what this method does is we get a new table without any metatables, and then we loop through that prototype table that we had. And what we do is we sort of just rip all of the indices out of their save data metatable, and we turn it into a normal table, and we can use that to send it to the client. And I'll move it on over here to the client side and show you what's going on. And so whenever I update it on the client, that remote event's coming over. I have an action and the data, and then it'll just do whatever it needs to with the data that I sent. So I know it's kind of hard to visualize this if you haven't really used data stores or haven't really developed many games. As I could just go through it again real quick before the end of the video. There's a little funny meta method. I should probably make another video for some more meta methods, but yeah, basically what that raw data does, it just takes our meta table, turns it into a normal table, and then we can use that table and send it over our remote events to update our UI on the client whenever we want to. So right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Yeah.